Welcome. Today we will talk about the process of photosynthesis, and we will begin by covering the three broad components of the ecosystem, then define the terminology photosynthesis itself, go through the visible light spectrum, and lastly talk about the two major phases of photosynthesis. So producers form parts of the ecosystem, and they are organisms that create food from inorganic matter like water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. And they are also referred to as autotrophs in the sense that they provide their own food. Examples of producers include plants, lichens, and the algae. There are two major types of autotrophs. We have the photoautotrophs, and these are organisms that obtain energy from sunlight. And they mostly include plants. So plants are like the most recognized terrestrial photoautotrophs. And in most aquatic ecosystems, including lakes and oceans, algae are the most important photoautotrophs. The other type of autotrophs that you would come across is the chemoautotrophs. So these autotrophs are found in ecosystems that do not have enough sunlight. And instead of using sunlight, they break apart inorganic chemical compounds such as hydrogen sulfide, ammonium, and they use the energy released to make organic molecules. And examples include bacteria and certain other microorganisms. So in this picture, you can see the nitrogen-fixing bacteria referred to as a chemoautotroph, and they use the nitrogen in the soil as an energy source. So another component of the ecosystem include consumers, and these feed on producers or feed on other consumers. So there are three categories of consumers. We have the primary consumers, the secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. The primary consumers feed directly on plants and other producers. The secondary consumers feed on primary consumers, and the tertiary consumers feed on secondary consumers. Consumers include mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, quite a wide range. Another ecosystem component is the decomposers. These organisms feed on dead things such as leaf litter and wood, animal carcasses and feces. They are very vital in the ecosystem in the sense that they help clean up these dead organisms. And you can imagine how the ecosystem would be without decomposers. So they are very important in the ecosystem. So going through the three ecosystem components, producers are the organisms that go through the process of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is basically the process by which green plants, algae, and certain forms of bacteria are able to make carbohydrates from carbon dioxide, water, in the presence of chlorophyll, by using the energy that they obtain from sunlight to release oxygen into the atmosphere as a byproduct. The primary function of a leaf is to convert carbon dioxide, water, and energy from sunlight through the process of photosynthesis to form glucose. This is a cross-section of a leaf. So the upper and the lower epidermis, so those are the transparent layer of cells that can be found on top and at the bottom of the leaf. There is also the stomata, which are open or closed pores that allow for exchange of gases and water vapor. There is also the mesophyll layer that is between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, and they contain majority of chloroplast. We also have the vascular bundle, and they transport water and minerals to the mesophyll and transport products of photosynthesis. Under the vascular bundle, we have the xylem, which specifically transports water and minerals from the roots to the rest of the plant, and the phloem transports nutrients from the leaves to other parts of the plants. So typically, water is directed to the leaves through the plant's vascular conducting system, which is the xylem, and the leaves are oriented in a way that they are able to receive maximum amount of sunlight, and that is specific to how thin the leaf is or how flat the shape of the leaf is. So all of that is to enable the leaf obtain maximum amount of sunlight, to penetrate the leaf to reach the chloroplast, which are specialized organelles that perform photosynthesis. Once the sugar is formed from photosynthesis, the leaf function is to transport it down the plant through the phloem, which is also another vascular bundle, through the phloem, which run in parallel to the xylem. And the sugar is typically transported to the roots and shoots of the plant to support growth. Chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis in plants, and they are surrounded by double membrane that contains structures that are involved with the process of photosynthesis. The outer and inner membranes are separated by an intermembrane space. And one thing to take from this structure is, one most important thing is the fact that the light phase photosynthesis occurs in the grana, and surrounding the grana is the stroma, and that is where the dark phase photosynthesis also occurs. And I'll explain more about the light phase and the dark phase photosynthesis. The light phase photosynthesis, as the name implies, is dependent on light, and it occurs in the grana, which is the starch membrane structure within the chloroplast. So the direct energy of light here helps the plant to make molecules that carry energy for utilization in the dark phase of photosynthesis, and they use the light energy to generate coenzyme NADPH, which is fully referred to as nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, or simply put, NADPH, which is the molecules that carry energy in this photosynthesis phase. So opposite to the light phase photosynthesis, we have the dark phase photosynthesis, which takes place in the dark, and it occurs in the stroma. It is also referred to as a Calvin cycle. Here, carbon dioxide and chemical energy are the inputs, and sugar with water are the output. So for the dark phase photosynthesis, the plant uses ATP and NADPH, which are generated in the light phase to perform the photosynthesis to produce these outputs. We have plant pigments, and these are the pigments that give color and drive chemical reactions in plants. An example is chlorophyll, and it is actually the primary pigment found within plant cells of all green plants. The green coloring of the plant leaves and the tender parts of the stem is also due to the presence of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the most essential pigment in the sense that it plays a vital role in the biological process of photosynthesis. We have types of chlorophyll. We have the chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll B. So what color light does chlorophyll reflect? And that will be green. The reason why we are able to see leaves as green is because they are reflecting the green light. Another plant pigment is the carotenoids, and they are in the form of orange, red, yellow colors, and they are compounds that are insoluble in water and are also attached to the membrane of cell bodies. They absorb primarily in the blue and green ranges of the light spectrum. So these are the ranges that the plants can absorb light. So plants use wavelengths between 400 and 700 nanometers for photosynthesis, and this provides all the energy that the plants need. Sunlight is the most important light source for plants, and naturally it provides all these wavelengths. And basically, wavelengths in the red and blue spectrum are absorbed in greater amounts, while more green and yellow light is reflected, which gives the leaves their characteristic green color. So in summary, we covered the three broad components of ecosystem, which are the producers, consumers, and decomposers, explained the term photosynthesis to be the process where green plants and certain forms of bacteria and algae are able to make carbohydrates from carbon dioxide and water when there is chlorophyll, and while they use energy from sunlight to produce or to release oxygen in the atmosphere, and also use and also produce glucose. We also covered the light and the dark phase photosynthesis, explaining the fact that the light phase required sunlight and the dark phase doesn't require sunlight. And plants also use wavelengths that are between 400 and 700 nanometers for photosynthesis. And this is what provides all the energy that the plants need. This brings us to the end of this lecture, and I hope you enjoyed it.